Hey everyone, it's Timid Falcon Knight, and I am back with another episode of Road to 1K, and today we are going to be taking on this High Funds Tier 2 match on the map Azure Blue. So, the thing about Azure Blue is it's a very heavy just naval map. Boats are going to come into play pretty significantly. It's a 2 comm tower map as well, which is part of why I did not want top, I wanted high. Because this is tier 2, this is the high tier. I think it's actually just not GL, high, low tier. Yeah, it's just either high or top for this map actually in globally. Oh wait. What? I didn't realize since I was allowed. Hold on. Huh. He only has a 48% actually, so if I'm being real, Sensei is kind of mid on this map. If I'm being real, actually, because he doesn't really have the battlecopter production to be able to handle naval units all that well. But yeah, Drake isn't allowed in this map, and neither is Grit because it's a naval map, obviously. Javier is banned because it's 2 comm towers and heavy naval, which means we're going to be seeing a lot more battleships than usual, which means that his defense and his indirect defense specifically would scale really, really well on this map, which is why he's banned even in top tier, I think. Yeah, he's even banned in top tier, which is kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, there's a 2% FTA. And Sasha, if I'm being real, Sasha is kind of threatening on this map a little bit. Especially against Von Bolt. Because Sasha can basically make it so that Von Bolt never pops off his Ex Machina ever. I feel like Sasha should be tier 2 almost, even though I hadn't really had too many issues overall dealing with her when I've been playing in tier 2 against her. But the thing about Sasha on high funds especially is, sure, she only gets an extra 100 funds per property, which means that it doesn't scale as well in high funds. But her market crash reduces it by 10% per 5,000 funds, right? So in a map like this that has significant amounts of money, right? You're gonna be having more than 50k per player per turn, right? She can easily just snap her fingers and take away her entire power bar. So what that means is Von Bolt's never gonna get his power off because he's just never gonna be able to reach that full 90k points, even on like a naval map like this where there's gonna be tons of swings and just power bar totals, right? But yeah, Sasha does have to be a little bit careful about how she pops her power because sure, she also wants the extra attack and defense that it gives so that she's on par with Von Bolt, but she also doesn't want to give him too much power where he'll be able to get enough charge to actually pop it. So that is something that you always need to be careful of when you're playing Sasha. But I feel like against a lot of the people in tier 2, like Sturm, Von Bolt, Drake to an extent, Sasha is really good. Now, Max and Andy, well, even Andy is pretty decent against Sasha, I'd say. I mean, Sasha is pretty good against Andy because it's kind of difficult for him to even get to a hyper effort, even. And he doesn't have that day-to-day firepower and defense bonus that everyone else in this tier has. But yeah, I feel like the only one that in tier 2 that Sasha really, well, we are 2 people that Sasha has an issue with in tier 2. And that's just gonna be Max and Grit, because they have good power. They have good little powers basically. Andy does too to an extent, but it's kind of minor. And doesn't have a good day-to-day to back him up, whereas both Grit and Max have phenomenal little powers and phenomenal day-to-day bonuses. So they both basically demolish Sasha. But everyone else with the slower charging powers does have a bit harder of a time against her, unless, especially when they don't really have that good of a day-to-day, right? But because of Typhons, you are going to be able to get around that eventually, more or less. Just by the speed at which your power bar is going to charge, because there's so much money on the field getting destroyed, right? So yeah, the gameplay around this basically revolves around two fronts. You've got well, they're basically the same, they're mirrored on the map, but it's going to be revolving around this sort of area on both sides of the map. It's going to be this one port versus these two ports. And then you got the center area here. Like, you're never going to be able to get this port in the center because it's not connected to like a shoal or anything, but you can easily just put a battleship there, and then it'll control the entire area. So basically you can eventually get this all of this money here for more or less free if you just stick a battleship over this way. And you guard it properly with like cruisers and stuff. Like even if your opponent sends in submarines against your battleship and they're on so long as your battleship is on this harbor, like tough luck for your opponent's subs, right? It's gonna be kind of difficult for them to take it out completely. Without drawing the fire of the cruiser in the back. And then there's a lot of play that you can do around these two harbors here, cutting it off and everything, depending on what you do naval unit-wise here. Like, you get a lot of income on this map. Like, I think it's 54, 61... I think it was 62k per turn, which is a lot of money. It's enough for 2 battleships a turn if you really want to afford that at par. But the other thing, so you can effectively outbuild your opponent by spamming like battleships or whatever you need from these 2 harbors, because you have 2 versus your opponent's 1 here, right? It's gonna end up being a weird thing because naval battles do sort of revolve around how many battleships you have. Well, mainly just how many battleships you have, especially if you're playing a quest defensive CO like Von Bolt, because so here's the thing about battleships, right? Is they have they're pretty tough to kill. Like, the only thing on this list that's above like 55 damage per turn is the bombers, and you can pretty easily counteract bombers with like carriers or cruisers or whatever. So it is kind of difficult for you to get into a battleship block and stop the snowballing from just battleships, right? Okay, the other things that I wanted to point out in this map are the airports in the corners here, which they are basically so far out of the way that they're kind of irrelevant by the time you get to them. Like, your opponent can get a cruiser or even like a carrier at that point, and then they can just zone out either battlecopters or bombers even, or whatever have you. Now, bombers are super important on this map. They can be super important. It's just they're kind of expensive. So the question on this map actually does become, do I get a bomber or do I get an extra battleship a lot of the time? Right, and then a lot of the time, the battleship might just serve the purposes that the bomber would, plus some, because they have such high range. They can effectively zone out this entire area while not having to worry about anti-air or fighters or anything like that. And they also don't really need to worry about bombers if you have like a carrier in the back to help back them up. So that's part of why battleships are just... I'll point it out more in the actual replay, but like, battleship spam is an actual strategy. So there are also these pipe teams here, which if you blow them open, they give you basically access to this entire peninsula, and that allows you to sort of get an assault going on these two harbors. So you can sort of zone this area out with like even rockets maybe, but definitely like with artillery spam or something like that. As long as you just have stay out of your opponent's battleship range and then just send all the artillery in at once, you can basically effectively take care of that. As long as you have control of this sea here by like building enough naval units in this area as well. At least that's how it works in theory. I'm not sure how it works in practice, because neither my opponent nor I actually ended up breaking these pipe teams in this match, I don't think. But that is something that you might want to keep an eye on, as these pipe teams, taking them out and then just spamming units through this area, either like tanks or just a massive artillery from this area here, or what have you, right? Yeah, and I think that's all I really wanted to talk about before we actually have examples from the replay, so we're going to go ahead and just get on with it. So, first turn here. Oh yeah, the other thing that's sort of interesting about this map is you have this green base here. It's only there because it gives the player 2 an extra like 2k funds without needing to split off the infantry away from this base, right, on turn 1. So it allows you to open up with a little bit of extra unit count while not really giving player 2 that much of a STA. So the thing that you need to be careful of, though, is just make sure you always capture his turn 1, because otherwise you will just lose if you're playing against player 2. But like, you'd have to be playing really damn quickly in order to miss that, especially since you like need to go for the base anyways on turn 1 usually. But yeah, so starting out here, we're just basically starting out with pretty basic infantry moves. We're basically going for the airports as well, to an extent. Like, I'm obviously going straight for the airport to start out with because it's a naval unit. I'm assuming that battlecopters are going to be pretty good, or at least decent, against this stuff. This was back before I really recognized how busted battleships are defensively, especially if they're on the harbor still. But yeah, so I go for the airport early, and then I also go for an early lander here. Basically, I'm hoping to bypass this pipe team entirely, and I'm just hoping to ferry units straight across the strait here from these two bases. So that's the idea for behind the lander. My opponent goes for an early APC to get his units up this way a bit faster, I guess. Which honestly, I don't think he really needed to do that. I feel like the infantry have a decent enough time just marching down there by themselves, but it is an option, right? Which is what, but in response to that, I go for the anti-air, which is basically the perfect counter for it, at least for this early in the game, because it deals with the infantry, it deals with the APC. It basically forces my opponent to build a tank or two from this area, so you counteract it, and it also wards off any areas that he could send to support up this way. So overall, especially in high funds, I'd say it's pretty decent to open anti-air, because it basically forces your opponent to open tanks like this. And tanks aren't necessarily the best units in high funds, because you can almost always be able to afford like neo tanks, or even medium tanks are pretty good to deal with tank spam. But especially if you have an extra like defensive bonus, if you're like 10-10 like Von Bolt is, you can win a tank war just by the numbers. So getting your opponent to build tanks is actually a pretty good strategy here overall. Like, as long as I'm able to match the tank count and get the first strike here, I'll basically be set here. But as you can see, he's actually going pretty aggressively with the tank in this area even. He's got an an artillery here to start trying to help him push through this way. Also to ward off anyone that I have in this area. And then he's also got a black boat so that he can start ferrying his infantry over into the islands area in the center here to start taking care of those. The other thing that's pretty important about these islands is unless you have battleship or battlecopter support to kick your opponent's infantry off of them, they could just leave their infantry on the islands and then they just hold it so that you can't really land there without taking care of it with like either a battleship or a battlecopter basically. And that can get tricky if you're trying to get that stuff out there. Yeah, so I go for a black boat of my own to start ferrying stuff over. I've got a battlecopter as well, but I've got a recon that I can just send this way to deal with his infantry. He's only sending like one down this way to so far. So basically I can just go in here more or less for free with the recon. Basically I'm trying to divert some of his resources this way as well, if I can. So I'm hoping for him to just like build a tank or something. As you can see there, the extra 10% defense coming in clutch. I'm not sure why he didn't... Oh, I know why. So he's leaving this guy here to guard the strait this way so that I can't head into this area with my artillery, which I can't really do anyways, if I'm being real. So I'm not sure why he bothered doing that, whereas he could have just killed off my infantry there, maybe. Yeah, and then he would have a free shot at my artillery if I decided to retaliate like that. So that's actually not bad for him. So I already have tanks in this area, maybe a few less than you might want, but I got tanks in the area basically. And I'm walling off this comm tower for the time being, so he's got to be able to take care of that with his tanks, which he's got 2 tanks in position. So I've basically got to move out with my flak at this point. Get it out of there. Well, actually, just take out the APC there. Okay. Yeah, at this point, 1 tank, 3 tanks. It's basically right as far as the unit count goes, but I am going to be giving my opponent the first strike here with the tank. And then he's got a recon of his own here, which isn't the best move, but whatever. Yeah, and he's just moving the tanks up this way. Okay, that's what was going on. Got it. Right, okay. Now I remember how this worked. So what I do here is kind of aggressive, honestly. Yeah, that's pretty aggressive. So I take out that infantry, and then I also with this tank, I forget what I do with this tank, but what I should have done instead of going for this tank was just go for this tank, because then I would have been attacking from here, and then I would only be suffering the 1 tank attack. But this way, I'm leaving myself open to a lot of tanks, and he gets a re-hit from the city, basically. So that was a kind of bad move. He's got a cruiser out here and an anti-air to sort of deal with my battlecopter, which I'm pivoting this way so that I draw the anti-air north is the idea, because I don't want this anywhere near my infantry over here. There's a lot of moving parts in this map, so if I forget something, that's why. Look, I completely forgot that I built a sub here to deal with his battleship, which he built a carrier in response. I mean, a cruiser in response for. And in response to the cruiser, I went for the battleship, right? I'm still able to basically take control of this property for the time being, especially considering I have the B-copter and plenty of artillery to deal with anyone who just tries to push this way, so that's not bad. Let's see. Yeah. And then I move this guy like that, so partially to chase off this guy, partially to limit this guy, limit how far he can move in with his battleship. Because he can't go to these tiles now with it. Well, these two. Right? Let's see. Yeah, he takes out my tank. Well, he gets first strikes on both of my tanks here, which... This first strike on this one isn't the worst for me, but the other ones are pretty bad, honestly. And it's at this point that I'm going, okay, I'm not going to get this comp tower. I've got to pull back, right? Oh yeah, he got a lander of his own at some point. I forget when that was. But he's got a battlecopter of his own. He's got a cruiser here to zone out my battlecopter now. Well, a carrier. I keep on saying carrier when I mean cruiser and cruiser when I mean carrier. But yeah, he can basically just do this for free because he's got anti-air plus cruiser plus carrier in this area. So the battleship's got to... I mean, the battlecopter has to get out of there at this point. I do finish off the infantry, actually, so I don't get out of here quite yet. And what that's going to do is allow me to prevent him from grabbing these two properties, basically, which is going to be pretty important because it's going to cut down on his income for quite a bit here. I also go for the artillery strike on this guy so that he doesn't flip this property, and that's going to be pretty important as well, just as far as money goes. Oh, and then I also block this guy with my black build because, like, I don't want him moving in this way anymore if I can help it, so that's more or less what I'm thinking with that. The other thing is, like, if he had a shot of a black build, he'd be able to just take it out with a battleship, right? So I'd rather that didn't happen. He's needing a second comm tower at this point. I think we both have two comm towers at this point. Well, next turn he'll have both. Yeah, but he's got a decent area here that he's built up with his boats and stuff that I can't really break into quite yet. Like, he gets the sub here because I've got two battleships. And what's annoying for me is I can't really move in with the sub here because he'll just kill it with the cruiser, basically. Even if I have it on this harbor, he'll just kill it with cruiser plus sub, right? Because he'll get repairs on the sub because naval units are pretty tanky and a single submarine usually doesn't take one out if we're on the harbor. Because that is one of the things about naval units that's almost always overlooked, is they get a significant amount of defense from just having the harbors or sitting in a harbor, and you can't really attack into the harbor that aggressively unless you have battleship support, right? Which I'm about to get in this area. But yeah, so I finish off that infantry completely at this point, which I don't know if it's worth the tank, but probably not worth the tank to take out a 1 health infantry, honestly. But yeah, now I'm starting to aggressively capture in this area, and like, just if you look at the if you've been paying any attention at all to the income of both of us, of both players, you'd know that I'm significantly ahead in income, which is why he's kind of going pretty aggressively here. And in the center here, but he's kind of giving up more or less everywhere else. And I just get a shot on this guy with the battleship here to deal with the cap, and then I pivot these guys around like this so that they're out of range of the battleship again, out of range of the artillery, and then they can still sort of deal with the infantry pretty effectively. So I go like that with those. Yeah, so he finishes off my tank in this area, and then I've also got a battleship in this area. Now, what I'm planning on doing with this guy is just sending him north to zone out these two cities. So that takes care of both the tanks and the infantry and even like the artillery here pretty easily with just one unit. So it is a heavy investment, but it's worth it. And then it's also sort of stopping him from going in too heavy in this area just because he can't get into this guy's range basically without taking a massive hit from a battleship on a harbor that will heal it basically next turn. And he's got battleships in the area here. So there's the first market crash. Takes about 40,000 away from me, but the main important thing here is the extra defense and firepower. Mainly the extra defense, honestly, if I'm being real. But yeah, and then he only interrupts this with the one guy, which is a bit weird. But, like on my turn, right, I'm able to just move in like this, get a couple of good first strikes. Yeah, I'm able to take this guy out with the artillery plus the infantry. So that frees up this guy to basically finish off the battleship here. Like a free health battleship I'm not really worried about at this point. The artillery is going to suck, taking a full hit from that, but I can always take care of it next turn, right? And the battleship is the bigger threat here. If I just join cap here, and then since I'm guarding with the infantry plus tank, I basically secured this. Honestly, if I'm being real, I didn't even need to join cap there. Yeah, I didn't even need to join cap there. I could have just done 6 plus, or did I need to join cap there? Oh, you know why? I attacked with the infantry there. That's why I needed to join cap. Okay, that's fair enough. And then I go for the attack there because I'm out of range of the cruiser at this point, so it's a decent amount of damage on the sub. Basically taking care of the sub on my turn, and more or less, before it gets a chance to actually attack into my battleships next turn. So basically I've taken out one of his battleships. He's going to have to break out of this somehow. I go for a cruiser plus an extra battleship here just to deal with this guy. So I've got anti-air and everything to ward off his battlecopters at this point. And then I'm getting prepped for an advance into this area as well. So he takes out my infantry there with the battleship from there. Interesting. I didn't even realize that he killed that infantry, if I'm being honest. So that's actually fine by me because it's leaving him stuck there with his battleship, which there's no real reason for me to bother here. But he goes for market crash, which is enough to barely take out my battleship there, which sucks. But he moved his he had to move in his submarine there, so I'm going to be able to just spot it with my infantry and then finish it off with my cruiser. So that's not a big deal. What is a big deal? Excuse me, sorry. Is that he's got an anti-air in this area. But I've done a decent enough job of taking care of his infantry that I can just finish it off, and then I'll be able to reinforce with the tanks soon enough that it'll be fine. It'll basically be like good enough for this. Yeah, so as you can see, goodbye submarine. I get a good shot off there. I finish off his battleship as well. So I will take another like shot from this guy on my battleship, which it'll suck, but like not the end of the world. I can always repair that if I need to. I can just get a black boat out for field repairs too. That's the other thing about naval battles, which is kind of interesting, is you can always have decent unit count because you can just repair at sea with your black boats. So that's always really useful. I'm gonna go for this attack with my my battlecopter, mainly because, like, look at that. Like, there's nothing else I can do with it, really. Other than hide down here, maybe? Yeah, I could probably put it, like, there. On this tile specifically for a turn, but I don't really care about that. So, instead of doing that, I'm just going to get the damage on the cruiser here, basically take out half of it, and that... I mean, it does a good amount of damage. I do it when he has his power active, so it doesn't get any extra boost out of it, and I'm getting pretty close to my Ex Machina here, actually. So, fingers crossed I'll be able to actually press the button next turn, because I'll have a good amount of stuff here. But you will see how close I get. So yeah, he just takes it off the carrier here. No point in mincing words or anything here with it, right? Finishes off my infantry and artillery and everything else in this area, right? And he gets barely enough to do it by charging in with his tanks and everything here. So, unfortunately, sorry about that. Unfortunately, I'm not actually able to. Like, he just drained my entire meter there, which just sucks. You hate to see it, right? I possibly could have counteracted that by falling back a bit and not giving him as much stuff to attack here, because he was barely able to take care of that, but he had an extra like 1900 as well. So, like, if Sasha plays properly there's you never see it anyways, but. You did see the full power meter there for like a couple of seconds. And overall, like, as far as like unit value and everything on the board goes, Sasha is coming out ahead for the time being. But I am about to get a significant amount of like income lead. Like, I've already captured this property. I'm going to start capturing this one. I take out his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, his battleship's out of range anyway, so I just take out his lander there, and then I go in here and attack his black boat, mainly just to make him do a little bit of extra money and repairs, right? Because cruisers can actually attack black boats. We're not exactly good at it, but it's something you can do. And then I just block his cruiser with my lander here. So lander actually getting some decent play here. Now, it's only because this battleship is out of range now. Like, landers are as durable as black boats are, but I'm still going to be able to get some use out of this guy. Even if I'm not using it for just straight up vehicle transport as much. Honestly, I feel like just swapping this for a black boat would have been much better, because they have more move, and I wasn't really ferrying units as much as I figured I would. I was mainly just using it for blocking. And I could have used it for repairs as well and just refueling and stuff, so that would have been decent. Anyways, I hide this submarine here. I repair the cruiser, I guess. And yeah, I wall off this guy as well, so there's no chance of him stopping this flip either. So yeah, he gets like one thing, and then he resigns here, which well fought. I think a main reason why he resigned here was keep up the sub here and the inactive. Like, this is just blocked off by a shoal, so this is supposed to be for building black boats to help you take control of the islands in the center here, but he wasted 20k on a sub here. So basically, at this point, he's down 10 units, which isn't that much, considering it's a naval map. But the unit value at this point is a big deal because we are on paper about even, but he's down 20k because of this submarine. And I'm so far ahead in income that it's not going to really matter at this point. I can just basically sustain losses for more or less effectively forever. I've sort of walled off his units over here. He does have counterplay in this area, to be fair, but at this point he doesn't have enough money to get 2 battleships plus infantry on all of his bases every turn. Which means that he's going to fall behind like significantly at this point. I'm starting to spam battlecopters again because I recognize that I can start moving in here. So the thing is, right, I was basically planning to build a bomber next turn because this pipe team is low enough that I can basically finish it off with the bomber. But he resigned before I was able to do that. So I was about to start moving in for bombers and stuff, but he beat me to the punch here. Honestly, it's kind of hard for him to make any headway here. Like, I have about battleships protecting this property, so he's not going to be able to flip that really easily. I've got a lot of naval units in this bay here, right? So I brought this guy down. So he's still basically covering this entire area, but he's also zoning out this area as well. So there is that. I've got artillery here. Like, if he wanted to, he could move in with his battleship, but then I just build more battleships in response to zone it out. Like, he's not exactly in a good spot. Now, well, I could have even gotten more subs or whatever. His cruiser is kind of low on health as well. Like, at half health, it's still going to be able to do a good chunk to my subs if I had started spamming them and sending them into the center, but it's effectively useless against the battleships, and that's all I need here anyways to zone out his stuff, right? So I do think Resign was basically decently timed because the main issue for him is he doesn't really have a plan to bridge that income gap. Like, let's say he takes this property, he's still down like 4 or 5k per turn, right? And there's nothing really that is in range for him to capture. I'm about to start taking out his anti-air with my tanks and stuff, so I'm going to have control of this peninsula. I more or less have control of this area, this bay over here. He could decide to just invest in like battleships and stuff in this area, and he does have the black boat here. So what he can do with that is just use it to wrap around here. So if I wanted to move in with the sub here, I could do that, but well, actually I could do that anyways, right? Yeah, I could. So what I could have done, right, is attack with the sub into this guy, and then just block this tile with like a black boat or something, and then he'd never be able to spot my sub, so his cruiser wouldn't be able to take it out. So that's where he's sort of gotten harbor locked here as well. So I've done that pretty effectively. And this just goes to show how effective that extra 10% defense on Von Volt is. Like, I didn't need his Ex Machina for anything here. And this wasn't even every day, because Sasha got her power like a good amount of times. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 times. I honestly figured it would be more than 3 turns. But yeah, 3 out of 14 turns. That is a big difference. Like, you can say that Sasha's really good because she basically has the same day-to-day stats as Von Bolt when she pops her power, but she's not going to be getting her power every day. Not necessarily, right? At least not until the very end, but still. Like, even if she pops her power, you're just going back to par with Von Bolt. And if you don't have the income lead, if you're not like tied as far as like properties go, which allows you to get a little bit of extra money just from Sasha's ability, that doesn't really help you all that much. Now, on high funds, I do think she's a little bit underrated. I feel like she could be like low tier 2 just because of Market Crash and how powerful that is. But overall, I think the only one she destroys really in high funds would be Drake, probably. Sturm as well, actually. Sturm and Drake. And that's only if Sturm can't get in a decent enough position with his defense and stuff to the point where it matters, right? But yeah, overall, this was a really fun match. And the thing is that's great about it, well, I'm at 1180 now, but that was the match in which I actually finally made it to 1200. So the question here becomes, well, actually, hold on. Yeah, the outro, because I'm done with all of that, right? The question here becomes, like, 182 out of 1448. That's actually, 182. Okay. I didn't realize it was that good. Top 200. I will take it. Anyways, I just got completely distracted by that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this season going until I get back up to 1200, which should only take another couple of matches. We'll see. I might just get on a massive losing streak. So maybe not. We'll see. Anyways, if you enjoyed, please go ahead and like and subscribe and all that other nonsense. If you haven't been liking me just winning so much, don't worry. Next week will be next time will be a match in which I actually lose, so you can have fun with that, I guess. But yeah, as I said, if you enjoyed, please go ahead and like and subscribe and all that other nonsense, and I will see you guys in the next one. So bye for now.